To our webinar series. I'm Kim Bischoff, the Executive Director of the National Neurofibromatosis Network. These webinars have proven to be an excellent way for the NF Network to reach individuals across the country. This evening, we're very fortunate to have with us Michelle Ranae Wild, who is the President, CEO of the Brain Education Strategies and Technology. Tonight is using apps to help with related learning disabilities. We'll be learning about how the use of apps can help with common executive functioning challenges, which includes a shortened attention span, lack of concentration, poor short-term and long-term memory, and difficulty with time management and with setting and monitoring goals. This webinar is for parents of children, adolescents, and adults living with an app. And Michelle, it also sounds very good to me. We will also see how to use the apps and answer questions about apps that focus on note-taking, organization, energy management, and goal setting. After this evening's presentation, and actually Michelle is open to having questions even during the presentation. I can get to the next slide. So if you have a question, you can type your questions to be read out loud in the webinar control panel that's on your screen. To write a question to be read out loud, click on the question box located in the lower portion of the webinar control panel. To remove that webinar control panel from your view of the screen, click the orange rectangular button with the arrow at the top left portion of the panel. This may be necessary to have a complete presentation. Well, Michelle, welcome. We're delighted to have you with us here this evening. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much. I'm very excited about it. Excited to share some information that I have about how maybe technology will be able to benefit the population.
And I'd like to say thank you to Rhonda McKahey as well for introducing us.
Absolutely. Thank you, Rhonda.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and switch it over so that your slides can show.
Perfect. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and show my window. Can you see that?
Yes, I can.
Perfect. Okay, so again, my name is Michelle Ranae Wild, and my background, I have a master's degree in psychology, and I've worked with individuals with brain injury and brain conditions for over 20 years. I work in an educational institution out here in California, a community college that has a special program for adults with specifically acquired brain injury. And I've started this nonprofit, and we just were approved for our 501c3 within the last few weeks, so I'm very excited to announce that.
Now, congratulations.
Thank you. The objectives that I've set for this particular webinar are to help you identify at least 4 different learning issues that are associated with NF, and then also to identify at least 3 different ways in which each app that I'm going to show you can be used to help with specifically executive function, although I think some of the apps can help with some of the other learning issues. So we'll take a look at that. The audience for this can be sort of a broad audience. So I've identified parents of children and adolescents with NF, perhaps adults living with NF, teachers who may be looking for some technology possibilities, as well as speech and language, occupational therapy professions, etc. So we know that the most common kind of cognitive and return to school or work issues associated with NF are concentration, issues with memory, perhaps impulsiveness, social difficulties, consistency in doing things, self-esteem and confidence, and executive function. And I think that, in fact, apps can help with many of these areas, not all of them necessarily, but I think that we can make an argument for the use of technology and apps to help with a variety of these issues, and so that's what I'm going to try and do tonight. Specifically, when we look at executive function, we are looking at planning and organizing, remembering things, time management, prioritizing things, paying attention, getting started on tasks, initiation, and then also mental flexibility. And I'm sure that you can think, looking at this list of potential issues, how these impact both individuals in a school, at home, and also in a working environment. And so if technology can actually help with some of these things in those various environments, I think that it's a good option for many people. Apps to use at work, school, and home. So we just looked at some of the issues, and the apps that I'm going to present to you today can actually help in the following areas: energy management, conservation, energy conservation, goal setting, brainstorming, the ability to sort of think about things and throw them out there and be able to organize those things, to take notes, to do some problem solving and decision making, as well as time management. One thing that I'll mention, I'm going to go through just sort of a few of the different issues that we've mentioned in a little bit more detail, provide a few strategies and which apps might help with each of the issues that I'm going to identify. And I'll do that for about 15 minutes or so, and then I'm going to actually get into the apps and do some live demonstrations of the apps, how they work and how they might be able to be used. So that's sort of my plan for this evening. Just sort of a broad-based exploration. If you look at some of the app use examples that I have here, apps can be used to illustrate concepts and ideas. For instance, maybe members of the educational or rehabilitation team and their specialties. So I have an example that I'll show you actually in the Inspiration Maps program that I have created with the help of some speech and language pathologists and occupational therapists that just sort of really help identify and distinguish the similarities and the differences between the roles that they play within a rehabilitation team. You could do this also for individuals within an educational environment. So maybe a resource specialist versus a classroom teacher versus a speech and language pathologist that kids might be working with within the educational environment. The next example is to teach students how to set their own goals and manage their energy throughout the day. So we know that goal setting is often difficult for individuals, especially individuals that have issues with executive function. So a couple of the apps that I'm going to share with you today actually address this issue of setting goals, setting specific SMART goals so that they're specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely. And then the combination of apps also allows them to sort of track the time that they spend on those goals, their mood and their energy levels as they work on different activities and different tasks and different goals throughout the day. The next column there is to use apps to help with note-taking, organizing information, and learning to manage time effectively. And so I have two different apps there. I'm going to talk about Notability today. I won't talk about Week Calendar today, but I'm certainly happy to chat with anyone that might have questions about that app. And then the last column here is to use apps to brainstorm, organize, take notes, and create task analyses regarding potentially work-related information or even school-related projects that students might be involved in. And so we have a couple of apps here that can help in that particular area. Kim, I'm just wanting to make sure that everything's coming through okay?
Everything's coming through just fine.
Perfect. Okay. So when we look at learning and memory sort of as a category of potential issues for individuals living with NF, we see some common things. And basically what I've done is I've identified those common issues with some examples, and then we'll talk about a couple of strategies, and then again what apps might benefit those particular issues. So one of the first issues that was mentioned is concentration, the ability to really stay focused, try not to get distracted. And so some of the strategies for that are to actually track the amount of time that you can do an activity and still remain focused or still maintain a level of energy that will actually benefit you throughout the rest of the day. So the Pace My Day app is actually an app that is designed specifically for that. Let me just mention here, full disclosure, that the two of the apps that I'm talking about, Pace My Day and ReachMyGoals, are actually apps that were developed in conjunction with the nonprofit BEST, Brain Education Strategies and Technology. So I just want to make sure everyone's clear on that. They are available as with all these other apps. Pace My Day is pretty unique in terms of what it does. And the Reach My Goals app, there are definitely apps out there that do some of the things that the apps I'm going to share with you do. These are just the ones that I found to be most beneficial when it comes to individuals that are dealing with any kind of cognitive issue. So the next common issue is memory. So forgetting information and or people's names, forgetting to bring items to school, or forgetting to put certain items perhaps in a backpack before they leave for school. And so there's some strategies for that, which might be to take pictures of relevant work or school site locations, take pictures of maybe coworkers or teachers or friends. And one thing that I'll mention about that is a lot of times people are very subconscious of taking pictures of teachers or friends or something. And so one strategy for that is really to get sort of a group of people together, take a group picture so that no one is really standing out. And then by using the apps and some of the things that I can teach you in using those apps, you can sort of circle the face of someone and name that person so that it becomes less conspicuous that you're taking an individual picture, but it also helps with that concept of memory issues. So there's a couple apps that can do that. One is Notability and one is Inspiration Maps that we're going to talk about tonight. Impulsiveness is another potential issue. And so impulsiveness is kind of starting something without really thinking about it. And a strategy for that is to essentially establish a plan for completing the particular task. And so both the Reach My Goals and the Pace My Day apps can help with that particular issue. Another common issue is consistency. Doing things out of sequence or skipping steps is an example of that. Or forgetting appointments, those kinds of things. Forgetting appointments might be memory. It could be lack of consistency. It could be a variety of different issues. So some of the strategies for that might be to make checklists or to set alarms and reminders or to create sort of routines within your life. And the Pace My Day, Reach My Goals, and Notabilities app can help with those kinds of things. I want to make note here where we have strategies. Setting alarms and reminders, that's one of the biggest benefits of using technology. I believe technology is a wonderful thing for our populations, but I have to say that the alarms and the reminders and the capability of doing that really benefits people, especially individuals that have difficulty with memory and that kind of thing. If you're using a phone or if you have something like an Apple Watch, they will both vibrate in place of sound. So if there's any kind of hearing impairment involved, the vibration can be enough to notify them that there's some kind of reminder or notification that they should be aware of. And then by looking on the phone, the notification will pop up and tell them what they should be looking at. A few executive function examples in terms of common issues, that idea of planning or having difficulty with planning. So not really planning things out, not completing work on time, all are very common things. So some strategies might be to actually enter all the commitments in a calendaring app. Everyone that has a device, an iPhone or an iPad, an Android device, everyone has a calendar, but they don't always use the calendar. Many people use the devices as sort of a social media outlet, as a telephone, as a texting medium, when in fact the devices really are a cognitive prosthetic that will allow them to actually learn to compensate for some of the cognitive issues that they may be dealing with. Another strategy would be to create a plan for accomplishing a particular goal. So the Week Calendar app, which I mentioned earlier, and the Reach My Goals app can help with those particular issues. For organization, a lot of times people spend a lot of time looking for things, not finding things, not knowing where they place something. And so taking notes on a smart device, using a keyboard for keyword searching on devices can be extremely powerful, especially for individuals that are in school, whether that's high school age kids, college age kids, etc., or for individuals who might be working and needing to take notes and be able to find that information effectively. So the Notability app, inspiration maps, and the week calendar can be helpful for that. In terms of time management, losing track of the amount of time on a task is very common. We think we've sat there for 10 minutes and it's actually been a half an hour. And from a time management perspective, what that does is that essentially starts them in a sort of a negative spiral or downward spiral in terms of not being able to be on time, missing appointments, being late for things. And all those things actually do have, do impact that self-confidence issue that we were mentioning, at least originally on that original list. Some strategies for that might be to track time, energy, and even mood on a per-task basis. And the Pace My Day app was designed specifically for that purpose. Initiation is another issue that's been identified. Having difficulty maybe initiating a task or even being overwhelmed or not knowing where to start can all be issues associated with initiation. So some of the strategies might be to actually brainstorm before you do something, before you start something. And that can sort of just get all of your ideas down, get all of your ideas down and sort of release you from trying to hold on to information and feel like you're going to forget something. Another strategy would be to use a variety of different time management techniques. So the Inspiration Maps app as well as the Pace My Day app both would do those, would deal with those particular issues. The last slide I have in terms of examples is the common issue of mental flexibility. And so not knowing when help is necessary is sort of an issue associated with mental flexibility. Difficulty actually incorporating feedback, and then also difficulty switching gears. All of these things are examples of issues with mental flexibility. Some strategies might be to look for previously written notes and have a list of go-to people. And what I mean by go-to people is it may be parents, or it may be siblings, or it may be friends, but sort of having a list of those people that you can go to for certain kinds of things. And that can be very helpful in terms of sort of focusing an individual and helping them with that mental flexibility. In addition, they could create a graphic organizer to help them see kind of the big picture of a particular situation before they kind of do a deep dive and try and solve a problem or make a decision. A lot of times that graphic organization process can be very helpful in terms of seeing the bigger picture. So the Notability, the Inspiration, and the Pace My Day apps could all help with the issue of mental flexibility. Before we actually look at the apps, I want to take just a second to talk about a concept that I sort of have coined it this way, if you will, making cognitive connections. And the whole idea of making cognitive connections is really to emphasize the benefits of someone using a smartphone as sort of a memory or a cognitive prosthetic. What do we mean by that? It's often, prosthetics are very well known for individuals who may have lost a limb in some way, but it's often not thought of in terms of a cognitive prosthetic. So a cognitive prosthetic is basically some kind of, in this case, a high technology device like a smartphone or a smart device or a tablet that can be used to actually help with compensatory skills. The next aspect of making cognitive connections is really teaching the fundamental technical skills that a person needs in order to actually learn to use the device. But in addition to that, simultaneously drawing on the parallel of the cognitive skills. So as we look at some of these apps, I'll be talking about, at this point, we're working on categorization skills. At this point, we're working on sequencing. And this is a really good opportunity for us to practice decision-making or problem-solving. So one of the things I love most about technology is that it gives me a very, very concrete way of helping individuals deal and recognize with some of the cognitive skills that they may be having some difficulties with. In addition to that, the Making Cognitive Connections approach sort of focuses on those cognitive skills and has the individual identify how those very same cognitive skills relates to everyday life. And so, for instance, if we're doing something in Pace My Day, which you'll see in just a few moments, and we're coming up with categories, life categories of things that a person might do, and all the tasks that are associated with that, we can turn that, we can help individuals learn to generalize that concept of categorization and create a list of categories of things, let's say, in a different app or in a different aspect of their life. And again, technology really helps us in that particular area. The final thing is really the emphasis in the benefits of the apps and the technology as really a tool for cognitive rehabilitation. And so the concept of cognitive rehabilitation is essentially looking at the various and sundry issues that we've addressed or that we've talked about so far, and really trying to figure out techniques that we can use in order to help individuals. And so the concept of cognitive rehabilitation, I think, is extremely important and can be addressed quite effectively in a variety of ways by using technology. Are there any questions at this point before I move into the app portion of the presentation?
There aren't any right now, but if anybody has them, go ahead and type them in, and I will go ahead and stop you, Michelle, at that point and interject.
Okay. Sure, that sounds fine. Okay, so the apps that we're going to look at today are ReachMyGoals, Pace My Day, Notability, and Inspiration Maps. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to sort of take you through each app. I'm going to tell you what the app is, how it could be used, and then I'll actually do a brief demo of each of the apps that I've mentioned. So the first app I'm going to talk about is ReachMyGoals, and we identified that, in fact, executive functioning is an issue that many people perhaps struggle with. And one of the ideas or one of the issues associated with executive functioning is actually goal setting. And goal setting is very complex. It requires a variety of different skills. It requires attention to detail. It requires time management. It requires sequencing. It requires decision-making and planning and organization. So just the concept of creating a goal can be extremely complex, and individuals can run into problems at any one of the stages of goal setting. So let's take a quick look at some of the ideas of what goals might be, and then we'll go into the ReachMyGoals app quickly, and I'll give you a brief tour of that. So one thing that the ReachMyGoals app allows you to do is to actually set goals. So you could set a goal for a birthday party, or set some goals for a particular semester, or for a academic, or for a athletic kind of a goal. You could also set goals for projects that might be related to school or to work. You can also establish task lists. So one of the things with task lists is really sort of identifying all the individual steps that are necessary in order to accomplish that goal. You can plan activities, and for me, the apps that I've created, which are the ReachMyGoals and the Pace My Day, my emphasis is really in the concept of developing principles of self-regulation. And so hopefully you'll notice as we go through the Pace My Day and the ReachMyGoals app that there are some self-regulation principles built into the apps, and I'll try and point those out as we go. Let me just mention very briefly that when it comes to goal setting, there's been some research that's been done out of Dominican University up in San Rafael, California. And the research basically has indicated that there's sort of 5 different levels of success with goal setting. The first level is essentially those individuals who may have goals, but they never write them down. And those individuals are often don't really accomplish their goals very often. And so that's sort of the least effective approach to goal setting. The next set of individuals are actually those individuals that have goals and write them down. They write the goals out. And those individuals are more successful than the previous group, which is not writing the goals down at all. The third group is actually individuals who set goals as well as identify sort of an action plan or a list of tasks that need to be accomplished in order to really successfully complete that goal. And they do better than the previous 2 groups. The fourth group is actually individuals who set goals, identify and plan out an activity list or a task list, and who share their goal with other individuals. So it could be a friend or, again, a family member, a parent, a sibling, etc. But individuals who do that are actually also more successful than the previous groups mentioned. The fifth group is typically the most successful individuals in terms of reaching their goals. And those individuals write their goals down, they establish an action plan or a task list, they share the information of the goal with an individual, and then they actually keep that person updated. They share progress reports, if you will, with individuals. The reason I'm mentioning this, because in the ReachMyGoals app, one of the things, I'm going to have to turn my screen here a little bit, one of the things that's important is that the ReachMyGoals app actually allows individuals, let me get into that, sorry, I have it open here. What the ReachMyGoals app actually does is it helps individuals go through each one of those 5 stages, starting really with writing the goals down. So this is an example of a ReachMyGoals screen. You'll see here on my screen I have best online training as a goal that I've set. Towards the bottom, you'll notice that there's a use step-by-step guide and there's a use goal template. I'm going to show you the goal template real quick. If I tap where it says use goal template, you'll notice that there's 2 templates listed. If there's anyone in the audience here tonight that's interested, I'm always looking for more templates that could be included in the app. And you'll see what the templates are, and if you have any ideas, please reach out to me after the session. I would love to talk to you more about that. So I'm going to choose complete essay because that's relevant for a lot of individuals. Now, one of the things that's interesting is this says complete essay. This could be complete a speech. This could be a lot of different things. So the templates are really designed just to give an individual sort of a jump start, if you will, on setting that particular goal. So you'll see here it says complete essay for English class by working on it 3 days a week for at least an hour. That's a sample of a goal description. The information down here are the tasks that are set up, and we've specifically entered these in a very particular order in order for the individuals who might choose this template to be most benefited by the template itself. So if I'm wanting to create an essay, I'd come down here to the bottom and I'd say create goal using template. It's going to ask me to type in a template, and so I'm going to, put in here English essay. And I'm just going to say add goal. And what happens is you'll see all of a sudden my English essay goal is listed there. If I tap on that, I now see that the SMART goal has been written out. I can go in and I can edit this if I choose to. I have a category for this particular goal. I can set start and due dates for the goal. The next thing that it's asking is this goal attainable? And so that's part of the SMART goal process, and it allows the individuals to really think about it and put down why they think this goal is sort of an attainable or a realistic goal for them. It's not uncommon when someone actually sits down and is asked that question that they may decide that I really want to do this goal, but it may not be realistic right now because I have too many other commitments or I don't have time or something like that. I'm going to go ahead and jump out of this, and I'm just going to show you the best online training example. If I come down to where it says Manage Tasks, which is at the bottom of the screen, I now see a list of all the active tasks that I have that I've not yet completed. You'll notice up here at the top of the screen it says Completed Tasks, and Active Tasks is below that. That was actually done intentionally because it's a strong belief of mine that we need to be reinforced in knowing that we are working towards something, that we're accomplishing things. And in a lot of other apps, one of the things that happens is the completed tasks often either go away or they go to the bottom of the list, and we often miss our opportunity to sort of feel positive about what we've accomplished. So in this particular case, I've actually put the completed goal list up, or the completed task list up at the top. If you go into any goal, you can include subtasks. You can have, each goal can have its own individual start and due date. And you might be thinking at this point, okay, this is all fine and good, but I don't know if I want to do all this. Well, I do want to say again that we know that individuals who go through this process are actually more successful with accomplishing the goals that they set. So although this may look like there's a lot there, and you may be thinking, well, the person that I'm thinking of that might need to use this might not be able to use it. I actually highly encourage people in any of the apps that I'll talk about to work on these things together, to really look at what are some of the ways in which these apps can be used by the individuals. If they're kids or adolescents, sit down with them and really go through the process with them. So in this particular case with the ReachMyGoals app, I would sit down and talk with a kid or whoever the person might be and really ask them what they'd like to accomplish and then go through that process. The next app that I'm going to talk about is Pace My Day. And Pace My Day is actually an energy management program. It's designed to help with time management. It helps you identify how long you can do a particular task, either post-injury if it's a brain injury, or with some of the issues that you might see within the NF community. It also really incorporates the concept of breaks and the necessity of breaks. And then finally, again, as I mentioned, self-regulation is extremely important to me, and so the Pace My Day app actually integrates a lot of self-regulation principles. So let me go into the Pace My Day app, and basically this is the app. If I tap at the very bottom where it says My Tasks, it's going to give me a list of categories, as well as if I tap on a category, it's going to give me a list of errands, and it's going to give me a list of tasks, within that category. So I chose an errands category, and within that category I have a variety of tasks that I have identified. And in this case, many of them are shopping related. If I were to go into, let's say, something like Costco here, you'll see that one of the things that I can do is I can identify strategies that might benefit me in my attempt or in my task of going to Costco. So for me, the example of bringing my refrigerated bags is a good one because I'm always forgetting to bring my bags. An example of a note in terms of shopping might be I have 2 Costco's fairly nearby me. One of them has my favorite oatmeal cranberry cookies, and one of them doesn't. And so because here in California they don't all have the same products, I've made a note to myself that in fact the oatmeal cookies that I like are at the Irvine Costco. The next category or the next field here is the optimal duration. And this field is extremely important because this is how many minutes the individual thinks they can either do the task and still have energy, or do the task and be able to continue to stay focused, either one of those two. You'll notice that in this particular case, the minimum amount of minutes is 5, and the maximum amount of minutes is 60. The reason for this is because an individual really, with any kind of cognitive issue, but most of us in general, really shouldn't be doing a task for more than about an hour without sort of self-monitoring. This is the self-regulation principle. Without sort of monitoring how we're feeling to determine whether or not we should continue or whether we should take a break. And so the Pace My Day app actually integrates that concept. If I go to My Day, I can add activities for the day. In this particular case, I'm going to say, well, I've got to organize my mail. And you'll see I have some strategies here. The strategy is to sort it and then purge the junk mail. And my notes are to have a shredder, sorry, there's a typo there, to have a shredder nearby. I am looking at this. I'm now ready to actually start the task, so I would say get started. And the first thing it asks is, what is your current mood? So I can say, I'm actually in a pretty good mood right now. What's my current level of energy? If the current level of energy is anything other than highly energized, you'll see here my optimal duration is 15 minutes. Then what happens is I would say I'm so-so. The app is actually going to recommend a modified time with the idea that if an individual thinks they can do something for 15 minutes when they're at their best, then when they're not quite at their best, really attempting that for 15 minutes may or may not be the best option. This can be used in a school environment. This can be used in a working environment for individuals who may be at work and have fatigue issues or energy issues or concentration or focus issues. One of the things that this can do is this can actually help them sort of maintain focus because They know that they're going to be focused on that activity for an amount of time that they can stay focused, and it will actually sound there's a guitar sound that goes off when this countdown timer goes down, and when that happens, they are then asked if they've completed the task. So it may be that they've done that task and it's all done for the day. If it's an example of perhaps a kid reading or a college student reading or anyone reading really, it might be that you have to sit and read for several sittings or several sessions, if you will, before you've actually accomplished that task of reading a particular thing. In this case where I have mail, I can say, yeah, I've actually completed going through my mail. It's going to ask me what my mood is. I'm still in a pretty good mood, but what I've found out is that I'm actually tired now. So I started out so-so, and at the end of the task, I indicate that I'm tired. This actually helps us identify those tasks that are most taxing for an individual so that they can begin to learn what to do, how to plan those tasks throughout their day. The app also allows them to take a break if they want to. They can choose a particular task, watching TV or playing a game or stretching. I'm going to say watch TV, and I might say I'm going to do that for 30 minutes, and I would say okay. And now what happens is a countdown timer begins. During that time, I wouldn't be using my music player necessarily to watch TV, but if I was stretching or doing something like that, I can actually use the music player. Any song that's on the device is available to be played during that break. And they can also start a slideshow of an album that might have their favorite animals or their favorite scenes from movies or something like that. They can actually incorporate that into the slideshow. If they want to, they can then, stop the break. And what's kind of interesting about this is the information that they do, the tasks that they do, actually populate in the calendar. So if you're kind of thinking, I wonder how this actually works, and this is over here. Sorry, I can't make it any bigger. But what this does, let me see, maybe I can't. Nope, can't make it bigger, sorry. What this does is this actually helps individuals begin to identify what they're doing. You can color code it with their actual calendars that they have within their calendar, and so it becomes a very effective time management tool as well. There's charts and reports that can be printed out, and so this is the Pace My Day app. Let me go back to my presentation real quick. And the next app is a note-taking app. It's called Notability. And Notability you can use for a variety of different things. You can use it as a task list for individual things that they need to complete, let's say for a homework assignment, or a shopping list for things that you might want at the store or items that they might need to get. It can also be used for lecture notes, and interestingly enough, it can be used, and I use it quite often, as a recording mechanism for doctor's appointments. I have an elderly mom, and I go to her appointments with her, and I found this tool to be extremely effective in helping me keep track of what the doctor's saying, and when I demonstrate this for you, I think you'll get a better idea of what I mean by that. So let me go into Notability. Any questions at this point?
There was one from Marty. He's wanting to know if the presentation is going to be available for viewing afterwards. And yes, Marty, it will be. It'll be on the nfnetwork.org site, and it should be up by Friday.
Okay. So let me go into Notability, and I'm not going to talk about the organizational structure of Notability or anything like that. I just want to take you straight into the app and kind of show you how it works. So this is basically the app. I can change the name or the title of a particular note. So I'm going to say NF Webinar, and I'm going to hit Enter on my keyboard. And now you'll notice up at the top here, I have a typing symbol, so I can actually hit the typing symbol and I can type text. This is an example of text. I can also come over here to my pencil icon, and I can draw right here on the screen. And that's actually, so this is a way in which it can be used within a classroom environment, certainly. And this is also something that happens when I've gone to the doctor with my mom or with other people. Let's say that a doctor is drawing a picture of a brain or something on a sheet of paper. you can actually have them draw that picture right here in Notability. They can mark it up. And this whole time, if I come up here, and you'll see there's a little microphone up here. If I tap that microphone, what's going to happen is it now is recording everything that I'm saying, and it's actually syncing with everything that I'm typing or that I'm writing. And so if I come back over here and I hit the typing tool and I say, this is now recording what I'm saying and typing or drawing. So what's happening is, as I type this out, that information is now being synchronized with the audio recording. I'm going to move down the screen here a little bit, and I'm going to draw another picture. I like happy faces. Oh, that one looks like it has a black eye. Oh, well, I won't take time to fix it. Basically, what we have here now is I've just drawn something, but I'm still recording. So if you can imagine, if I go into a doctor's appointment, for example, and I'm sitting there with the doctor for 10 or 15 minutes, and they're giving me lots of information. Perhaps I'm overwhelmed by it or have a hard time maybe following it. I can hit that record button up at the top. I'm getting exactly what the doctor says. I'm taking a few notes as best I can. When I get done at the doctor's appointment, let's say that the doctor indicated that there was a medication change that was coming due, and he or she tells you what the medication change is, and then also gives you, some more information about that. Well, I don't know how to spell the medication, and I get very distracted and perhaps overwhelmed by it. What I can do is I can actually open up the recording. I can play it back to myself, and you'll note here that this information is now grayed out. So what happens is if I hit the play button, I don't want to do it because I'm not sure if we'll lose the connection, so I don't want to take any chances. But if I hit the play button, this little playhead is going to move across the screen. If I tap my finger on this funny face down here, it's going to jump all the way automatically to where I was in the recording when I started to draw this face. So what happens is, if I want to go in and I want to find out what the medication change was, but I don't want to listen to 10 minutes of what the doctor said, I would just go straight to where I typed medication change. It would automatically jump to that part of what the doctor said, and I wouldn't have to try and find it within a recording. That becomes a very powerful feature. It's powerful, for example, in a doctor's appointment. It's also extremely powerful in a classroom environment. If a person is perhaps slow processing, has a hard time taking notes, has a hard time identifying relevant information within a lecture or something like that, using something like Notability can actually be quite effective in helping them not only become better note takers, but it gives them an opportunity to learn about note taking, to go back and fill in the gaps in their notes with the actual recording, so that they don't have to waste time in class actually trying to keep up with what is being said. Oftentimes what we do when we take notes is we're taking notes like crazy, and we're not really paying attention to what the teacher is saying, or we're not really paying attention to what the person in the meeting is saying. We're just trying to take notes. And what Notability allows you to do is actually potentially sort of let go of that and be able to focus more on what's being said, and then go back after the fact and sort of fill in your notes. Another use for Notability, just as an example, I mentioned shopping lists. So let's
Michelle?
say that someone wanted, yes.
Okay. There's a couple of questions here that I'd like to actually there's three, so I'm going to ask all three, and then I'll turn it back. One is how long recording last? How long can they record? How much space do they have there? And then another one, where has Notability been my whole life? How do I present to the school system? This is amazing. And then there's another one here. If the entire class lectures are recorded, how does it teach students to be better note takers? Okay, and then actually, is Notability used by individuals without learning disabilities?
Okay, those are all good questions. Oh, sorry.
One came up, but I'll ask you that in a few minutes. Go ahead.
Okay. I'm not sure I'll remember all of them, but the first question I believe was how long will a recording, how long can you record? You can record for as long as there's memory on your device. So you could record a 1-hour lecture, you could record a 3-hour lecture, you could record a 15-minute doctor's appointment. So that's one thing. Where's Notability been all your life? Well, it's been around for about the last 5-6 years. It was actually developed, I believe, by some graduate students at either Stanford or Berkeley in engineering who were kind of bored with their graduate program, and so they just kind of created this app out of the blue. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it was the first app of its kind. It's been around since then. There are other apps that do what Notability do. My preference actually is using Notability at this point. It's been around for a very long time. It's very stable, and it continues to be updated on a regular basis. Any app that I recommend to you would sort of follow those guidelines that I just mentioned. I think another question was, how is recording a lecture actually help you with note-taking? And the way in which it helps is if a person can't keep up with the notes that they're either, in this case, writing. If you had a stylus, you could actually do handwriting or typing. So if they're not able to keep up, what I would do is I would say something like medication changes, and I would just leave that there. What happens is when I'm done with the doctor's office or in a class or whatever, I have some key words. Those key words are now tied back to that audio recording. So I can actually go back and tap the audio recording, listen to what was actually said about the medication changes, and actually type in while the recording is playing for me. And anything I type in while the recording is actually playing back also gets linked to the recording, and that makes it an extremely powerful app. And then I'm sorry, I don't remember what the other question was.
How to present this to the school system.
How to present this to the school system. That's a really good question. I would love to talk to anyone that might be interested in that. I would be happy to, do demos and talk about it and explain, some of the benefits. One of the things that BEST does is create online trainings in order to help individuals learn how to use these apps effectively. And so certainly, that would be an option. But I would be happy to talk to someone offline about that. I think it would be very effective within the school system. There actually are some school systems that use Notability and all the apps that I'm talking about, but there definitely are some nuances and some challenges regarding that. So I would love to talk to you afterwards about that. Let me just also say before I go on to the next app that all of these apps, the apps that I'm talking about, let's see, Notability and Inspiration Maps are both $9.99 each, and the Best Suite, which is the Pace My Day and the ReachMyGoals app combined together, they actually talk to each other, but I don't have enough time to sort of illustrate that. Basically, that app is also $9.99. So the final app that I wanted to share with you, and I know we're going to, well, I'm going to take just a couple minutes to talk about this app. This is Inspiration Maps. Yes.
So there was one question there that didn't get answered, and that was Melissa was wanting to know if the entire class lectures are recorded, how does it teach students to be better note takers? And then a question that's rolled in here too is having trouble with spelling. How do these apps help with individuals who have trouble taking notes and not being able to spell?
Yes, okay. So the way in which the app can help by recording the whole lecture and note-taking is what I was trying to illustrate a minute ago, where when you're taking notes, when you have a recording and you can link the recording to what you're typing or what you're drawing or writing, there's actually some techniques and stuff that I'd be happy to talk with people about in terms of how that actually can be used to benefit note-taking. One of the first ways, again, is to sort of start with just keywords. In using any of these apps, my recommendation is to sort of start with one purpose in mind and then building on how the apps can be used for a variety of other reasons or a variety of other purposes in an individual's life. I also highly recommend that the ways in which the apps are presented to individuals are sort of addressing a need or a challenge that that individual is having. So let me give you a quick example, and if I haven't answered your question yet, I will come back to it, I promise. But within the Inspiration Maps app, basically that can be used for task lists, brainstorming, organizing an essay, planning a party, and even speech-related issues. So I'm going to go into Inspiration Maps for just a second real quick here and show you what I mean by that. So Inspiration Maps is actually a graphic organization program. I have a bunch of graphic organizers here that I've created, and I'm just going to show you a few of them. Inspiration Maps actually has a variety of preset templates that it provides to you. Many of these are academic in nature, and so they can be used for essay writing, comparison and contrast, and things like that. Here's a quick example of a compare and contrast. So in this particular case, if you had to write a compare and contrast essay, let's say about what the similarities and differences are, in my example here, Star Wars and Star Trek. Well, in the middle, you'll see both are, the similarities are that they're both science fiction, they're both outer space. The difference is that the character, the lead character in Star Wars was Luke Skywalker, whereas the lead character in Star Trek was Captain Kirk. So for those of you that are old enough to remember those shows, that might be helpful. Here's another example. This is the difference between rehab professionals. So similarities and differences between a speech and language pathologist and an occupational therapist. So in this particular case, speech and language pathologists and OTs both work with adults, they both work with children, they both work in hospitals, and they both work within rehab facilities. Speech and language pathologists, though, as you can see, the focus is to work with people who can't produce speech, maybe those with memory loss, swallowing dysfunction, etc. And the treatment plans are often comprehensive skills for written and verbal communication. Occupational therapists, on the other hand, work with people to improve performance on tasks of daily living, slightly different purpose. Some of the tasks that they work on are cooking and bathing and dressing. The treatment plans for occupational therapists are really quite different because their treatment plans are designed to adapt tasks and modify the environment in order to enhance function, both physical and within a social environment. So this compare and contrast diagram actually can be used to now write an essay. In fact, I created this diagram with some professionals at a hospital in Baltimore, Maryland, and what we did was we did this together as an exercise during a training that I was doing, and they're now going to use this very same concept in order to help compare and contrast the various rehab professionals so that people who go through their program better understand the roles of individuals within that rehabilitation environment. Another example here might be, here are six steps to problem solving. So you can create numbered boxes, you can put them in sequence, I can add additional issues or additional content to this particular thing. That's just another way in which it can be used. Here's another way it can be used. If you're looking at different kinds of categorization skills, you can see here I have home as a category, and there's projects that need to be done around the house, there's backyard plants that need to be done. So you can actually create sort of categories as well as tasks within those categories so that you can, again, get the big picture of the individual project that you might be working on. I know that there are a number of individuals that living with NF that perhaps have speech issues. One of the ways in which you could use something like Inspiration Maps, let me come back over here. I'm going to create a new diagram here. I'm going to turn this particular item into an apple. So I've selected it. I'm going to do a search here real quick for apple. And one of the cool things about this, let me select it. One of the cool things about this is that it allows you, it provides a variety of objects that can be used within this particular app. And so I now have something like an apple. I can put the word apple underneath it if I wanted to. I'm going to call it an apple. This app also has the ability to do, to do a basic recording. And so I can actually put within this, I can say, I can type the letter A for apple. I can have the picture of an apple. And I can, if they were to tap that apple, I could have either their voice saying the word apple or someone else saying the word apple for them. And it can be used in a variety of ways like that in terms of speech. So this can be used also as a technique for sort of brainstorming ideas for an essay in school or a party. So there's a lot of overlapping possibilities for this particular app as well. I'm going to come back over here. The next slide that you will see is actually a graphic organizational map that I've created specifically for the 4 apps that I've presented today. And so if you can see, Notability can be used for meetings or conversations, such as an IEP meeting. You could record an IEP meeting and keep track of that. For doctor's appointments, for speech issues. Pace My Day is really for energy management or time management. And there's some examples there of how it could be used for that purpose. So this little graphic organizer, done entirely in Inspiration Maps, is available within the handouts that will be provided to you. So I'm sorry that we ran out of time, but this is my information, my email address and my phone number. Our website is bestconnections.org. I'm happy to take more questions, and I would love to hear from you if you have, if you have any ideas for me, or if there's anything I can do to help in terms of, looking at how some of these apps could be integrated into a classroom or something like that. I would be more than happy to help with that.
I actually have Aubrey's email. He shared that with me so that I can pass it on to you. Michelle wants to
great.
Over. But I have a couple more people who have questions here. One is, does this app exist only in English? I am asking as I am listening to you from Switzerland.
Oh, very interesting. That's a great question. I cannot answer it, but if you will provide Kim with your email, I will be happy to research it and get back to you.
Okay. All right. And then there is, I got to scroll up just a little bit. So this information is an answer to prayer. I look forward to teaching my child to utilize these apps to compensate for her learning disabilities. Thank you. And then another person is saying, so grateful for the chance to be a part of this. Comforting to know others are struggling with the same issues and that great people are out there working to help us. And then somebody else is just saying thanks.
Well, very nice. Well, thank you so much for participating. Again, you have my information. I'm more than happy to help out. If you go to our website, you can certainly get some additional information. We're still building the website, so we have a lot of information on there, but it will continue to grow. If individuals within the NF community have specific ideas or would like sort of a specific section within our website, we'd be happy to help you out with that. So, I would just love to partner with you guys in any way that we can. So thank you so much for attending and for the very kind words. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much, Michelle, for giving up your time and educating us and our families about these exciting apps. I know I'm anxious to look at that Notability one for myself. It would be great. This webinar will be recorded, and it will be up on the nfnetwork.org website in just a couple of days. So I want to thank our generous donors who have made this webinar possible for us. And I want to thank everybody for attending. Good night, everybody.
Thank you. Good night.